we are going to recap a historical film called Kingdom of Heaven. The film is based on a true story and tells the story of a dispute between Muslims and Christians, where they fight each other for the Holy Land of Jerusalem. But before we start, I hope this video can make all of us respect each other regardless of religion. This film is set in the 12th century in France. At the beginning of the film, we are shown a priest and some gravediggers burying a woman in a crossroads. But the gravediggers don't realize that the priest is secretly stealing the woman's cross necklace. The woman turns out to be the wife of a blacksmith named Balian, who is the main character in this film. Balian looks very depressed and feels guilty because his wife decided to commit suicide after experiencing a miscarriage. While they are burying Balian's wife, a group of crusaders comes through the crossroads and tells them to get out of the way. The crusaders are led by a noble knight named Godfrey. After years of living in Jerusalem, Godfrey finally returns to his homeland to visit his son, who turns out to be Balian. Godfrey wants to meet Balian and make a confession that he is his father, and wants to atone for his sin of abandoning him and his mother. When he arrives in the village, Godfrey recalls his good memories he had with Balian's mother, the woman he loved so much. As an apology for all his mistakes in the past, Godfrey tries to explain everything to Balian, and he invites Balian to come with him to the Holy Land, which will make his life better. Although he keeps persuading him, Balian refuses his offers and chooses to live in poverty as a blacksmith in his homeland. Godfrey respects his decision and won't force him to come along. But before leaving, he tells Balian in the route to Jerusalem in case he changes his mind. The priest tries to provoke Balian to go to Jerusalem in order for him to claim the land and all property belonging to Balian in the village, but Balian has decided to stay in the village. When the priest talks about his wife, Balian realizes that the priest has stolen his wife's necklace, so he is furious and immediately kills the priest by throwing him into the fire. After the incident, Balian rushes to leave the village and go to Jerusalem to catch up with Godfrey because he knows he will be crucified for the murder of a priest. After a long journey, Balian has finally caught up with his father, and Godfrey will gladly take him to Jerusalem. Balian tells his father that he wants to come to Jerusalem so that all his sins can be forgiven. While they are training, a group of French knights comes and asks Godfrey to hand over Balian because he had killed a priest. Godfrey and his friends try to protect Balian, although Balian himself has admitted that he is the murderer. The French knights leave them at first, but it turns out that they have prepared a plan to attack them suddenly from all directions. There's a fight. Although the French knights outnumbered them and managed to kill some of their friends, Godfrey is finally able to win the battle. However, Godfrey's condition is getting worse. At the same time, he tells Balian that he used to be a man from the sewers who didn't even have a home, but that all changed when he went to the Holy Land, and now he is the master of the city. Godfrey dreams of the kingdom of heaven and hopes that one day the crusade will end so that Muslims and Christians can live side by side in peace. In the moments before his death, Godfrey bequeathed his sword and crowned Balian as the knight, and also Bear and Avibalin to replace him on the following day. Balian continues his journey to Jerusalem via the Mediterranean Sea, but on the way to Jerusalem, the ship is hit by a storm and is unable to withstand the fierce waves that make the ship and all the passengers sink. But apparently, Balian miraculously wakes up in the desert with a horse, who also managed to survive the incident. After a while, come two Muslim men who are a master and his slave. The slave translates his master's words, and accuses Balian of having stolen his horse, and asks him to hand over the horse. Even though Balian has explained that he is the Baron of Ibeland, and the horse is his, the man immediately attacks Balian, because the Baron of Ibeland he knew was an old man. The slave tells them to stop fighting, but Balian ends up killing the man. Balian chooses to forgive the slave on the condition that he has to take him to Jerusalem. Arriving in Jerusalem, Balian frees the slave and gives him his horse as a reward for bringing him to the Holy Land. The slave praises Balian and tells him that the Muslim man he had killed was one of the Muslim cavalry commanders. When Balian is walking in the market, some knights secretly follow him from behind because they see Godfrey's sword with him. Apparently, they are Godfrey's loyal soldiers, and one of them starts to ask him some questions. After they are sure that Balian is the son of Godfrey, they immediately take him to the palace. Balian's life changes because now he becomes master of the city and inherits everything from his father. Balian is invited to meet his father's best friend named Tiberius, and he is introduced as the new Baron of Ibeland to replace Godfrey. At that meeting, he meets Princess Sibylla, who is the sister of King Baldwin, and it turns out that she is also the wife of Gadalizine. However, Gad decides to leave the meeting after realizing that Balian is at the banquet. Shortly after, Balian is asked to meet the king who is waiting for him. King Baldwin is a wise king who for the past 6 years has managed to make peace with Saladin. Although leprosy forced him to wear a mask and live in loneliness, King Baldwin greatly appreciated Balian because Godfrey was his father's confidant, and he was the first to cry when Baldwin was diagnosed with leprosy. Baldwin gives full power over Ible to Balian and advises him to do goodness to anyone because all religions are accepted in Jerusalem. Arriving in Iberlin, the first thing that Balian does is dig as many wells as possible to make the area fertile. Balian prospers the land and brings everyone together regardless of religion. However, the conflict between Muslims and Christians reemerges after a Templar knight named Reynold provokes Guy to attack Muslim caravans and breaks the agreement between Saladin and Baldwin. A few days later, King Baldwin receives news that Saladin and his troops have crossed Jordan with 200,000 soldiers, which means Saladin has declared war against